We're all like idiots because the question I led us off with just a minute ago was, why do I look so white? Ricardo had some breaking news for me.
I don't know if you know this, but you're white.
Funny how that works.
All stupid.
Well, that's a good way to start this episode. With Dustin's privilege showing for everybody to see.
Look at that. It's like I got that sun living on the top of my head.
Maybe the mothership is hovering over your desk waiting to take you home.
Oh my gosh.
Welcome to the marketing trench. This is great. This is going well.
Or at least the gutter.
The gutter. Welcome to the marketing gutter. So today we're going to be talking about Californians fleeing and whether or not that's a real thing happening. And if it is, whether or not it's something we can take advantage of, because, if people leave the state, they're going to sell their homes. And why don't we become the people to take care of that? So is there a sales and marketing opportunity in flight from California or flight from, name the state, right?
Yeah.
New York or wherever. So that's the topic of today's show. And that came up because Scott and I were actually having this conversation a couple of weeks ago, right?
Mm-hmm.
We were talking about, how did we even get here? Do you remember?
One of you suggested it as a topic.
Yeah, no, I know you and I were having a conversation. It was a couple of weeks ago. No, we were just talking about there is a real flight. For a while there, it was sort of an urban flight. People leaving cities and going to places that were a little bit less locked down. But it's definitely happening in California. And then there was the Orange County Register article that you ran across that was basically mapping out where people are going and why they're going. And we were kind of talking about this, and between politics, between taxes, between COVID, there's a lot of things going on that is going to disrupt people's living situations. And
remote work.
Remote work. People aren't tied necessarily geographically to one place or another. Even if people are working and they become partially employed, that's going to impact your ability to afford housing in an expensive state like California. And I think it's interesting because last week we were kind of talking about, is it cool to talk about this stuff? Right. And I think that was appropriate to have that conversation last week. But it's been a week now, and there's a lot of things that we can have conversations about in a cool way. Because there's a lot of folks that are going to be asking questions, that are asking questions. And I think it's important that we in the real estate and mortgage business, we can really get in front of those, a lot of those conversations, and be a part of that conversation. And I think there's a real business opportunity out there.
Okay, so let's dive in. So Jonathan Lanzner wrote an article for the Orange County Register, and the article title is "Leaving California: A Guide to What State is Best to Move to." So let's just first lay out some basic data. So Jonathan argues that about 26% of residents ponder moving out of California. That's according to a poll that was done. And I think, I don't know about you guys, but in my life, I feel like probably at least 1 in 4 people have at some point in the last couple of, years talked to me about moving out of California. And I want to say that really, honestly, that number of people who've actually pulled the trigger feels high to me. But between 2017 and 2019, the Census Bureau shows that just 3% of the population actually moved out of California. Now, California has about 40 million people living here as of 2020. So if we just assume that 3% number, that's about 1,200,000 people that in 2 years left California, actually fled California.
Well, and those numbers, I think those numbers were amplified by COVID. because California was such a hard lockdown state. Um, I don't have the statistics in front of me, and I hope I don't get this wrong, but at one point I thought that nearly half of the people filing unemployment in the United States were in the state of California.
Damn.
California like really, really shut down. And I think that caused a lot of people to be a little more encouraged. I think the 3% from 2017 to 2019 is deceptive, because there was a lot of attitude adjustments that happened right around March and April of 2020.
So so the question we're kind of getting at here is what's the TAM? What's the total addressable market, right? And let's just assume for a second that, Scott, to your point, that COVID has really driven a lot of people out of business. It's made the state highly undesirable. They don't like the politics of lockdown. They can't afford to live here because of the lockdown, all of that sort of thing. So let's just assume for a second that the number is going to increase to, like, let's just say 6%, right? So in the next 2 years, 2021, 2022, it's not going to be 3%, it's going to be 6%. So the TAM is 2,400,000 people that are going to move. That's 2,400,000 potential listings, notwithstanding all the people who are going to move within the state, right? Because there are obviously going to be lots of people moving within the state. But if you wanted to target as a sales, as a listing agent, title person, maybe even escrow, wanting to reach out and get a piece of this action, we're talking about 2.4 million people. That's a lot of people.
Yeah. So there's two sides to this, and I know you guys are based in California. I was based in California, but the flip side of this is all of the people that are living in states that people are flocking to. Because what you also have, so a couple of weeks ago there was a Newsweek article that came out that did some polling, and they basically found that about 35 million people said that they could. Well, they obviously didn't poll 35 million people, but the sample. I guess whatever their sample was, they extrapolated it out to 35 million people that said that they were going to have trouble making their housing payment. But those aren't all homeowners. There's a lot of renters there. And if California is locked down, well, there's two sides to that. So your renters are your investors, your non-owner occupieds, right? So, and this is kind of where the politics comes in. COVID drives all of this, but then there's some politics that play into this. The longer the state enforces eviction moratoriums, the harder it's going to be on people that have non-owner occupied properties in California. And we know there are tax hikes coming down the road. The new administration hasn't made any, they're not hiding the ball on that at all. They're postponing it until, COVID happens. But now you've got all these states that have lost a tremendous amount of revenue. California started talking about not only increasing their taxes, but also making that tax liability follow you for 10 years after you leave the state. So, and I don't know if this was something that you and I were talking about, Dustin, but governments don't make money. They don't have an economy that happens around a government. They can only collect taxes from their people in order to pay for things. And they're either collecting it on the state level or they're collecting it on the federal level. But no, I have this crazy feeling that things are there. There is a lot of chaos over there, and you can pick the topic. But that topic is always going to lead to I think it's going to lead to a mass exodus, whether your employer leaves California because they need to improve their margins because sales are down. We've seen a ton of businesses leave California. So it's not just people that are in forbearance or their work is temporarily impacted. It could be complete businesses that are completely moving. out of California for tax reasons, and you come with us or you don't.
So what's interesting about that is a couple of things. One is it feels like California is uniquely experiencing an exodus, but only 3 other states had fewer people leave. Those states were Michigan, Texas, and Illinois. And so that means that other states are actually seeing a greater percentage of their population flee the state for whatever reason. So this isn't a uniquely California problem. However,
Right.
California is so large that when our residents flee, more, it moves the needle a lot more. Of course, New York is also experiencing this challenge. But to the point about, so thinking about putting on my sales and marketing hat for a second, right? There's a lot of reasons why people would move, like, and Scott, you just listed several of them. So then the question I'm asking myself is, if I wanted to position myself as the agent that would, solve, like, okay, if I wanted to market to these people, how would I do it? Right. So what do you guys think are some questions that someone who's considering a move might answer, that they might go to a Google search for, that we can maybe start capturing some high intention sellers with? Does that make sense? Or maybe we could.
I think the primary, the biggest wound here is the COVID stuff, is the foreclosure moratoriums and the eviction moratoriums that are on right now. I think that's probably the biggest thing. Another thing that I would look into, and this is a little bit roundabout, but the new administration has on more than one occasion talked about a home buyer tax credit. That's a good conversation to find out who's thinking about buying, maybe outside of the state. So.
But so Scott, I started having this conversation with you earlier this week when I was asking you for feedback on something. Yep. How do you start to reach out to those people and have those conversations?
The first thing you do is you go to your past client database and you talk to them about how they're doing. Just check with the people that you know and trust first before you start going out and trying to mass market. And then, quite frankly, have your talking list of challenges that homeowners and investors are having and are going to have in the future. And I would basically say, listen, I'm trying really hard to get in front of this thing, because this is you don't want to get caught in a situation where you're not prepared. So do you have anybody else that is in forbearance or that lost their job that I can connect with, so that they have a trusted source for conversations about home ownership preservation? I think is really the primary goal.
So one of the tools that I think we've all collectively often talked about that we really like is HomeBot. It sends that monthly home valuation to your past client database.
Yep.
And Dustin, you wrote a great follow-up script for that once. And so one of the other tools that I like, it's a little more expensive, but if you're a big team and whatnot, it's well worth it, is a service called Call Action. Call, and then action.co. They have some great drip campaigns built into it that, for different purposes. So if you're getting Zillow leads, if you're getting home value leads, whatever, one of their drip campaigns is HomeBot. And I love one of their outreach scripts because it says, hey, good morning, Scott. A few quick things. Did you see the most recent home value report I sent you? We just helped a client sell their home after they got into some financial trouble due to unemployment. We helped them save their credit, downsize into a smaller home, and net over $87,000. Do you know anyone that may be in a similar situation that we can help? We could share their home value report so they could see how much they would make selling their home. Let me know and have a great day.
Yeah,
so
a really good script.
I see that as a very kind of as a very helpful script that you can use in some of that dialogue that you'd be having with people as you're combing through your database.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's credit preservation. It's home ownership preservation. Um, if you can see that you've got trouble coming down the road and you're proactive about it. I saw this a lot after 2008, 2009. A lot of people were just in denial and just let things go, but people that were purposeful about, we'll just call it ripping the Band-Aid off, are able to recover a lot quicker on the other side. And sometimes that's a little bit what you got to talk about. I know it's hard times for everyone, but it's important that we have these conversations so that you have all the information that you need, because you're 100% right. You can avoid any credit challenges. You can avoid falling behind on the mortgage. You probably have a ton of equity. How the equity you have in your California home could probably buy you a home free and clear almost anywhere east of California.
Don't remind me.
That's very real, and I don't think you should shy away from that conversation. I think it's an important conversation to have.
I think here's the script, or what we were starting to put together in that email. I just pulled it up, but the script that you had shared was, hey, I know a lot of folks are struggling right now. Income unemployment is disrupted. I just wanted to check in to see how you and your family are doing, or to see how you and your family are holding up.
Yep.
And then, did you take advantage of interest rates when they dropped?
Yeah, and just finding out where they're at. We talk about this all the time, and this goes back to our very first episodes, like over a year ago, in the 4 control framework. This is a time when you should really be loving on your clients, on your past clients. They have very specific needs around housing, and they need an expert, they need a professional in their corner more than ever before, right? When everything's fine, you don't need anybody. But right now, you're not going to be able to call through your database without a quarter of them being really, really stressed out and not sure what they're going to do next.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I love, Scott, that you are emphasizing going to the database first, as opposed to doing mass marketing first. Because I mean, even in the way that I had originally framed the question, I was like, hey, what Google ads or what Facebook ads can you run? And your point is, no, you got this whole group of people that know, like, and trust you, and you should go to them first. And Ricardo, I love that you brought us back to HomeBot. I'd also point out TopHap, TOPHAP.
Yeah.
If you don't have your clients on something like a HomeBot, but you want to be able to say to them things like, hey, your neighborhood has appreciated 2, 3, 4, 5% in value over the last year, 2 years. TopHap can do that for you in the state of California. And that's a really powerful tool, right? Like, if you can point out that kind of appreciation and say, maybe it's time for you to consider leveraging the equity to find a better situation for you or your family. Yeah, I really like that. Okay, so let's assume now that we have reached out to our database. Do you guys think that there's a mass marketing opportunity here, or do you think this is only the kind of conversation you can have to your database?
So this isn't mass marketing, but I love, like, a few of the episodes that I've recorded recently were with people like Jeb Smith, who I think we had on this show, right?
Yeah.
Who's doing a tremendous amount of YouTube video. And then I just had another agent on. What I love about video is that you're having a conversation one to many. And I know, like, Scott and I were talking about this morning. I get a lot of resistance, though. I get a lot of, yeah, but, he's been doing video for a while, or yeah, but, he's got awesome equipment, or I don't have the right equipment, or yeah, but, I don't know how to edit. What's that?
I don't look good on video.
Right. And so, like, that's 2 words you need to eliminate from your vocabulary. Yeah, but. What I love about Jeb, and what's unique about Jeb, is that, there's nothing special about him. He just gets on camera and hits record. And as far as, like, how he sources his content, it's the questions that today's consumers are literally asking us. Right.
Yep.
So, I know that sounds like a longer term play, and it's not immediate. And so if you don't have any transactions, it's like, I don't want to focus on that. But man, Jeb started out last year with 200 subscribers and is sitting pretty at 16,000. at the end of the year. My other agent started at 9 and he's sitting at 4,900 at the end of the year. Like, and both of them are sourcing not only clients within their hyperlocal market, they're also sending referrals out of county and out of state. Like, that's wild to me.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you brought that up, because that's an important part of this is building a network of agents that you can refer your clients to across the country, and get an additional referral fee. But we talk about content, and this is more of a mortgage perspective. But if I were a loan officer originating right now, I would be contacting realtors and asking them how we can start with conversations about how to refinance after forbearance, right? So how to take advantage of the low rates once we get past all of this thing. That's just one more quiver, one more arrow in the agent's quiver, one more opportunity to have a conversation. And that was kind of the lead in. Hey, did you get an opportunity to take advantage of the interest rates before everything got shut down? No, I didn't. Oh, okay. Well, I've got this partner here, and this is a really good mass marketing. If you wanted to do mass marketing, we're talking about like white papers, or whether it's a video or something that says, how do I refinance after forbearance, or something like that, or what are the 3 most common ways to exit forbearance? And there's a lot of that information that's out there. What Jeb did is he specifically started talking about housing related issues that were created by COVID. And that's really all we're talking about, is just continuing that conversation, because we're a long way. It feels like we're a long way from this thing being well, okay, that was hairy. It's still super hairy. Like, it's still growing hair, it seems like, as we speak. It's yeah. I mean, it can be a good well, I wouldn't say mass marketing, but what it can do is you can put, and this is just more of a marketing strategy. But you're not selling people stuff. You're just giving people information. And anybody that opts into that information, so they watch a video, they download a report or a white paper or this infographic that our Facebook.
I can't see it in.
No, somebody says a good infographic. That's 1,000% right.
Oh, like creating a good infographic.
Creating a good infographic on what your options are, putting that up there. Anybody that engages that is somebody that then you can retarget, and you can start bringing them further down the funnel.
Or even if you look at the strategy that Jeb and Josh, so your partner at Buywise, just doing the regular Facebook Lives. Doing regular Facebook Lives and then taking that video content and running a Facebook ad to promote that video. You're essentially taking a video that's top of funnel. You're taking video, running an ad to promote it to a cold audience. You're warming up that audience and retargeting them with something like another something along further down the funnel.
Well, and the thing that I love most about that, and this is the reason why I really love video, is there's so many ways to repurpose it, right? So you do a Zoom or a StreamYard, with one of your referral partners or something like that, then you can pull clips out of that, and then you can use that in marketing and drive people back. You're not creating new or different content. You're doing it once, and you're using it multiple ways.
Yep.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Any of those content pieces keeps you top of mind. And that's completely right. I mean, not only because, remember, you're putting that stuff on your social media. Not only are you, those are people that may not have done business with you, but peripherally they're friends or they're friends of friends, and you start to establish yourself. But yeah, Jeb is the perfect example. He created that thing basically out of COVID. I mean, he leveraged that situation where we knew that overwhelmingly homeowners were going to be stressing out about certain things. And quite frankly, COVID is just one of them right now. There's a lot of weird stuff going on in the world, and people are
So-
kind of on edge.
So like, I just want to point out for those of you listening that don't know, like, let me give you some context. Jeb was creating maybe one video a month. COVID hits in March. He started creating, I think he said
2 to 3 a week, I think.
Yeah, 2 to 3 a week. He upped
Yep.
his production schedule from 1 a month to 2 to 3 a week. And what he was doing is he was looking for trending topics in the news. So like forbearance, what do I need to know about forbearance? Should I, what should I do, et cetera, et cetera. So he just took all of those topics, plopped himself right in front of the camera, hit record, and that's it. As far as like post-production, no heavy or fancy editing. He just focused on 2 things, the thumbnail and then SEO for your channel. So don't write your titles and keywords in the manner that, how you think you would say something. Look for how people are Googling for information online. Because I think the problem is we're in the industry, so we think of things one way and we use industry jargon, whereas the consumer does not. They search for things differently than we do.
Yeah, so we both we do, and Jeb also uses a service called TubeBuddy, TUBE Buddy, BUDDY, and it's kind of a plug-in into YouTube that helps with the keywords and the title and the SEO optimization and all of that kind of stuff. Listen, YouTube is hard. There's a lot of moving parts. There's a lot of things that you can do to go above and beyond. I think it's smart for anybody to try to figure out how to use YouTube. A link to Jeb's content. I think you can just Google Jeb Smith.
That's what I just did.
Yeah.
And here, let me pull up the screen real quick. Let's see if I can.
But even as a realtor, some of his highest traffic videos don't really even have anything to do with real estate. I know he did one. That was, he talked about rates dropping. That was a huge one. I know he did one about FHA mortgages, and that one was huge. And he really doesn't know that much about FHA mortgages. Any more than anybody else would. But yeah, I wonder if you can sort by, views and see what kind of some of his topics are.
Let's see. Go to videos.
Can you sort by views?
Popular.
Most popular, maybe? Yeah.
So there you go.
So look at that. FHA requirements. What is that? 87,000?
82,000,
That's
77,
wild.
46, 28, 22,000.
That's
Yeah,
wild.
and look, foreclosures and evictions extended. Anybody that listens to that, anybody that watches that video, do you think they're going to be interested? Mortgage forbearance extended. Yeah, just look at those. And it's always a great idea to put pictures of the new administration up. And you don't have to keep this. This isn't political. This is change, right? So there's a new administration. This new administration is going to have new attitudes. We go through this every 4 to 8 years. This isn't our first rodeo. There's always clickbait, and there's always opportunities to get in front of some of the conversations that new administrations are having. And another thing with Jeb's videos, and this is something that he recommended that we do that we're working on right now, is it's okay to go back and redo your thumbnails on your old videos. So if you have a bunch of videos up there, you can go in there and kind of trick them out. But no, Jeb went all in, and I'd say he's probably less than a year, but he immersed. He immersed deep into courses, groups of people that were doing YouTube, and they're not all winners, but they absolutely are. Some of them are, and he does that weekly with Josh. If you're in the state of California and you need somebody super smart to talk to, Josh is available. If not, find your lending partner. And once a week, he just does these Q&As.
I love this. He's being a real human to his audience. Look at this. My wife is telling me I need Botox in the forehead to get rid of wrinkles. People voting. He has 1,000 people that voted on this.
That's awesome.
That's funny.
Look, would you be interested in a video where I talk about how I went from being a millionaire at 26 to broke at 28, the mistakes I made and what I learned in the process?
That's awesome.
Oh, that's interesting. I don't know. What is that? Polls?
Yeah, that's in the community part of his whole thing.
I just know that right now, every time he does an episode, there are literally thousands of people watching, and there are they're getting a ton of phone calls. I know Josh does. We're referring a ton of people out to different states for loans. He's referring a ton of people out for listings, and I know he's starting to get listings now.
And remember, started the year with 200 subscribers.
Yeah, now he's at 17,200.
Don't.
Oh, that was like April. That was like April when he had 200
Yeah.
subscribers. Yeah, it's been less than a year. And well, and in addition to that, he's making several $1,000s a month on ads. So just YouTube running ads on people watching his content.
That is just wild.
Yeah, I mean, he's making, he's making part-time job income.
That is just wild.
Probably really good part-time job income from that. So yeah, I honestly think this is by far the best medium. If you have a large Facebook following, do a Facebook Live to your group. So we have a question. We have a question here about how video podcast feeds doing these days for syndication.
Well, so there's a lot of tools, right? So we're using StreamYard right now to do our video syndication. We're sending it to Facebook, to YouTube, and we could be sending it to LinkedIn. It's fine, right? Are we paying for it? I can't remember if we're paying for this.
For StreamYard?
Yeah. I think we hijacked Josh's account. So
Josh is paying for it, fool.
Until he listens to this.
We're going to get a text. It's not going to go well. So, I mean, there's StreamYard. We've used, what was the one we used before this?
Restream, I thought, or was
it was a different one. I don't know. It was fine too. I can't remember what it was.
Oh,
I can't remember either. It started having, we started having some challenges with it.
Yeah. So, I mean, I would say bottom line is there's a lot of tools. If you do a Google search out there, there are a lot of tools. This kind of stuff we're doing here is really easy at this point. We can't add, I don't think we can add a custom thumbnail from StreamYard for the videos we post to YouTube. We add a thumbnail for Facebook, but it doesn't go to YouTube. So, I mean, you would have to go back and do that work. But honestly, there are so many tools out there for people because there's so many content producers. There are a ton of tools out there that make it really easy to create thumbnails. You don't have to know Photoshop, which is a program that comes top of mind. But that's kind of like saying, if you want to learn to play baseball, you have to be good enough for the MLB. Photoshop is super intense. Even the easier versions of it are pretty intense. There are easier options. Canva's an easier option. There are easier options. So I would say, honestly, don't let the tools get in your way. Just start doing it. And what I've found to be the case, I think you guys would agree, coming up with content ideas is the hardest part. But this suggestion of pay attention to what's coming into your inbox, look at what's trending on the internet. Those are great suggestions. Do you guys have good thoughts on how to identify what's trending on the internet?
I can't remember. I have to see if I can find this link. There used to be Google. Maybe it's Google Trends.
Yeah.
There's a website that Google has, but you're almost always going to find trends and keywords that are irrelevant, like you would never use, like they're the stuff that actually trends.
So it's super hard. It's actually trends.google.com.
There you go.
So here it is. This is what it looks like.
So type in
Sweet Mother of God. Why is Kim Kardashian trending?
Yeah.
So we'll type in what? Move out of California.
Yeah. There you go. Let's see what happens with that.
Yeah.
Oh, that seems like an upward trend to me.
Yeah. And it looks like these are the regions people are typing it. Related topics. Oh, Tesla. Cost is a big one. So if I were an agent, right? I talk about cost and income.
Yeah.
Maybe you would even cover things like how do you get a driver's license when you move out of California? Tesla is really popular.
Well, that was kind of a big deal when Tesla moved to Austin. So it was, and there's quite a few companies in Silicon Valley that are making that move.
So you could say, hey, look, I remember, so one of our agents did a really fun thing. He's with Compass, his name's Chris Kwan, and he did a video with agents from other brokerages, some from Compass, some from others throughout the United States. And what the topic was what is $1 million? I think it was $1 million. What does $1 million home look like in, right? So he did $1 million home in Orange County. And then his buddy did $1 million home in Texas. And another one of his buddies did $1 million home in Mississippi, right? And it was a super cool way of basically saying, hey, like here's what purchasing power looks like in our region, and then also elevating your referral network so that you guys are, you've got a sort of network effect of combining all your networks together, and then you're reaching a larger audience. And I think that this is just it's a really powerful way to kind of get at some of these topics. Look, taxes, lease payments.
Chris's strategy, what I would think would also be a really good strategy would a moderately priced home. What does a $400,000 home look like in California? It's basically a 400 square foot condo with no windows. And then what does that look like anywhere else in the country? And it's probably a palatial estate. It's probably really nice.
That sucks.
Yeah. So there's some trends. There was also
look at the trend here for real estate as a related topic in California. See, this is a missed opportunity. Like Lighthouse needs to have a YouTube.
Is that up 80%?
Yeah, people are looking at escrow, man. They want to know.
And look at real estate bubble is another one. So here's another good conversation as we start talking about like if the new administration does bring in another homebuyer tax credit, what that did last time is it made home prices spike, right? Because you open up the buyer pool and there's already no inventory and then you flood in a bunch of people. That's not necessarily a good thing, but that's something that you can have conversations about. You can start having conversations about that now. Is what does that look like? You start building a database of people that potentially want to buy. That usually there's a certain percentage, 14 to 20% of people that are looking to buy have a house to sell. It's something around somewhere around those numbers. Marketing, when we talk about marketing in this sense, really what you're doing is you're having conversations and creating engagement and building lists of people that have specific interests. You're not necessarily doing what we're doing right now, or creating a YouTube video because you think you're going to get a commission check out of it. What you're doing is you're building an audience. And you're establishing yourself as an expert. You're establishing yourself as a source of information, and
you're being of service to anybody who's willing to listen.
Yeah, and I keep going back to Jeb, but I think you nailed it, Ricardo and Jeb. I love you, but you're the most. normal person I've ever. I guess that's the best way to say it. There really isn't anything extraordinary about him. I mean, he doesn't have an overt, over-the-top personality. He's not necessarily the most, been in the business for 50 years and seen everything kind of thing. He's a young guy. He doesn't have any advantages other than his desire to make this work.
Yeah, he's
and
great at work.
Yeah, he's willing to put in the work. He's willing to put in the he's willing to put in the effort.
He's consistent.
And he's consistent. And he's just going with it. It's literally one of those situations where if he can do it, anybody can. I mean, really, it's just there's not that much different. So, we've got the comment thread is pretty funny on this. I don't know if you guys can see this. Yeah, there are so many things that you could be talking about right now that will pay off. And think about this, put it in this context, and let's go back to Jeb again. I would bet 80% of people that you ask this question to would say, absolutely 1,000% I would do this. If you ask somebody, hey, if you did this one thing for 9 months, at the end of that 9 months, you will have thousands of people asking you or hundreds of people asking you real estate questions. You will have thousands of dollars coming in for you doing nothing. You'll have listings coming out of the woodwork. You'll have referrals to realtors across the country that you're getting referral fees on. Would you create 2 to 3 videos a day or 2 to 3 videos a month for the next 9 months? Everybody would say yes, but nobody's actually going to do it. So the people that actually do it, that is your opportunity. It really is your opportunity because most people just won't. And that was kind of the big thing with blogging for a long time, right? Yeah. Everybody knew you had to put content out there. Everybody talked about it. That's been something that, content is king. We've been talking about that for 10, 12 years. But how many people actually consistently create content and publish it online? And they just don't. I don't know. I kind of feel like we're a broken record when when we keep talking about you need to have these conversations in places where consumers can find it.
Yeah.
But I literally cannot say it enough. I can't say it enough. Oh, but I do have to comment on this. Somebody said the motto for Austin has always been keep Austin weird. I'm doing my part to preserve that tradition. So I can't vouch for these other Californians, but I can say I'm doing my part.
That's awesome.
But no, right now, man, there's the time is ripe. I almost can't think of another time that there was an intersection of so many topics that could impact people's lives.
Yeah.
Homeowners, home buyers, renters. We have a responsibility as professionals in the mortgage and real estate industry to have these conversations. We just do. I mean, you will get business out of it, but more importantly, you're leveraging your experience for the good of mankind, because there's a lot of people that have a lot of questions and it's really, really confusing, and they need somebody to go to. And right now, the only person they can find is Jeb, so they're all calling him. So
that's funny.
So something that jumped out to me from Jonathan Lanzer's piece is the discrepancy between perception and reality when it comes to best states to move to. Okay. So if you're fleeing California, the top 3 states that people who flee California go to are Texas, Arizona, and then Washington State. Number 4 is Nevada. Number 5 is Oregon. Number 6 is Florida. Number 7 is Colorado. 8, New York. 9, Idaho. Which is funny because my personal circles, I know more people going to Idaho than any of the other states, except for Texas. And then 10 is North Carolina. So those are the most popular, right? Like in people's heads, they think if I want to escape insert the thing. I want to go here. But when you look at the data, let's look at Texas for a second. Texas is the 12th best state for buying power. And then people say, oh, I want to escape taxes or I'm going to make way more money. Well, if you were to actually rank it in terms of how far your money goes, Texas is only number 8. And then if you're going to factor politics in, which Lansner did, and he assessed it based on progressive versus conservative policies where people are fleeing progressive policies ostensibly from California. No, Tennessee is not in the list.
That's surprising because I know a few people moved to Tennessee. Shapiro did.
I know quite a few people have moved to Tennessee. So if you factor in politics, Texas is still not even in the top 5. It's number 8, right? So what this tells me is there's some really interesting topics here, right? Like if people really want to talk about purchasing power, the states you should be talking about are places like Mississippi, right? And maybe Mississippi doesn't initially come to mind, but that's where you're going to have the greatest purchasing power is a state like that. So you should talk about, maybe that's an opportunity for you to get on the horn with, if you're looking for topics, get on the horn with a CPA friend of yours, right? And say, hey, let's actually talk about tax advantages. If you're a retiree, what states actually have the best tax advantages? Because then you can have titles like the surprising thing I learned when I looked into tax advantage states, right? Something like that. And you will surprise people because people are going to think I should move to Arizona. It's like, well, maybe not actually, right?
Well, so on the flip side of this, we're kind of talking about people fleeing California, but on the flip side of this, if I lived in any of those states and I was a real estate or mortgage professional, I would be creating content like crazy about what you need to know if you're fleeing California. Right? Or what you need to know if you're fleeing New York or all of these things. If you're in one of these feeder states, and it looks like, so we've got another,
hey, I know that guy.
It looks like you should know that guy.
Hey, Uncle Roger.
So, Wyoming has the best tax advantages. The 3 of the top 4 that you listed there, Dustin, don't have state income tax, right? So I think that's Arizona, Nevada, and Texas. Now, that doesn't mean that you automatically save that money because they make that money up someplace else, so it's it's usually property tax. But even in Texas, the property tax is under 2%, which is about the same if you go to any of like the new developments in South Orange County or Inland Empire with Melrose and all of that. You're at 1.8% on your property tax anyhow. But no, there's a lot of different reasons. And again, people that have renters that aren't paying their rent, somebody owns those homes, right? And that's easy enough to get from title records. Ricardo, you're the man for this. Contact your title rep, get a list of people with non-owner occupied vesting, and you can use it. Hell, I would do a mailer to those people. Hey, because another thing that California loves to talk about is rent control. And what I can see happening is with California's political kind of progressive perspective, you're probably going to see more and more government subsidized housing, whether it's Section 8 voucher type of situations, or just rent control. There's been a lot of talk about rent control all the time in California, and investors don't want to have to deal with that.
No.
That's another real hot point that's going to come out of this. So really get your juices flowing and start thinking about this in a different way, and think about what the potential fallout can be for all these things that we're dealing with in the world right now. And it's not sleazy to get in front of those conversations. It's almost a requirement of you as a professional to get as much accurate information about a topic that you're familiar with as you possibly can. And guess what? put your sights on 12 months from today.
Yeah.
Doing it today will fundamentally change your business in 12 months from now. You have to have that long-term vision so that your short-term activities are building up to that and are building up to that and leading you to your long-term goal.
Ricardo, any final tips from a tech utilization perspective?
No. I think that even if you just sat down and called, 10 of your past clients, you ask them how they're doing, you can do research. So you can ask them what their questions were when they were going through that buying or selling process with you. You can ask them what if they have any questions now. I think in software sales, we call it voice of customer. So just having those when you're researching your past clients to see what their pain points are and all of that stuff. I think if you sit down and translate it to real estate, you sit down and start to have those conversations, man, you can have talking points for days.
Yeah.
And content for days. So I don't think you need to fret about, I don't know what to say. I don't know how to approach them. Like, the content's there. Just start asking questions.
Yeah, ask questions and educate yourself, because you start having these conversations with your past clients and they're going to start talking to their friends and family about that conversation if they're in a similar situation, because everybody wants to be helpful, right? If you knew a coworker was having challenges, hey, my mortgage guy just called me and gave me this big long conversation, it's not really as scary as it seems.
And then what's funny is, like, the more you research this stuff to prepare yourself for a live stream you're going to do, for a video you're going to shoot, for a newsletter you're going to write. Like, everyone I've spoken to, I've been doing an interview series with agents who are doing video. Everyone I've spoken to has said it's fundamentally made me a better realtor.
Yep.
Because every time I sit down to research these topics, I know so much freaking more about my hyper local market.
Yep.
And it just boosts my confidence like so much more. So
I know that I know that I know what I know today because I was scared to death to make a mistake when I was writing about underwriting guidelines for mortgages. And so I became a national expert on several topics that are really big problems that less experienced people in the industry don't know how to have those conversations about those topics. You're 1,000% right. You can't help but grow as a professional by forcing yourself into that and into creating content.
And it's almost like, give yourself the gift and the confidence of knowing that you probably know so much more than, the next buyer or seller. Right?
Yeah. No, you absolutely do. It's funny. People say, well, I don't know what to talk about. And I think you asked this question earlier, Dustin, what kind of things do you talk about? Where do you get these topics? You should be hearing these questions with the people that you're just talking to on a daily basis, right? Whether they're current clients or past clients or a client that somebody in your office had. Your office meetings, you should be having conversations about, hey, what kind of questions is everybody hearing? Most real estate offices have a weekly meeting or a Zoom call, or there's some really, really great groups. Mark Blah has that real estate marketing group in Northern California. It has, I don't know if it's tens of thousands of people in that group. It's at least thousands of people in that group. But we've been on that thing a couple of times where he's had over 100 people, and they're just sharing, hey, these are questions that my clients are asking. So depend on your network and find out what kind of conversations or what kind of questions people are asking. It doesn't have to all fall on your shoulders. Go out there and mine for topics with other professionals, and quite frankly, you could get a group of people from across the country that are having these conversations, and you record something about a particular topic, 5 people can record about that same topic, and they're all going to be completely different.
Yeah.
Because they're going to be shadowed with your information.
Yeah.
Or with your perspective.
I mean, this has really been great. I think if I were, I entered into this with one idea of how I might go about marketing from an escrow company perspective to people who are fleeing California. But honestly, I feel like my idea was overblown. It involved creating a website with exactly where I would go. But actually, Scott, that's where you and I were initially when we were talking about it, right? We're like, oh, we should create a web page. It has like a calculator, so you could do cost
moving calculator, yeah,
moving calculator. And it's not a terrible idea, but it's a lot more complicated than where we've arrived. So I'm really glad we had this conversation because my head's full of ideas now.
And 100% go to your existing database. That's the low-hanging fruit always. Yep. And when you create content, send it to your existing database, and you'll get your confidence boost from that because these people already know and trust you.
Yep, 100%. If you want to read the article that we referenced today from Jonathan Lansner, the title is "Leaving California: A Guide to What State is Best to Move to." That might be a great article, by the way, to PDF and share with your database, right? Maybe that's one of the things you send out as a content piece. You can find it over at the Orange County Register. I think you might have to subscribe, but I think the subscription is free to access this. So just a heads up on that. That's Jonathan Lansner's piece, like we said. If you want to listen to previous episodes, including the one where we discussed with Jeb how he got his start, what he's up to, and I think he actually name dropped several tools that he uses. I think you're awesome. Love you, buddy. You should definitely check that episode out. You can find it at marketingtrench.fm. Marketingtrench.fm is the home for all of our previous episodes so that Trevor can go listen to them and figure out what we are talking about. And you guys can go listen to figure out what Jeb was doing when he got his start. And lots of other topics there too on tools we're using, how we're doing syndication, or how to build your past client database because you have one. Okay. Every week I'm going to harp on that. You can also listen to our sister podcast over at the Real Disrupt Podcast Collaborative. Great podcast there for people who are real estate agents, who are in the lending side, or who are trying to figure out how to create culture for their companies. Really awesome real estate industry targeted podcasts over at realdisrupt.com. Guys, it's been fun. I got to go, but I hope you guys have a great week and look forward to talking to you next week.
Yeah.